West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We're going to begin, Joe, with that poll that finds a majority of Americans, nearly 6 in 10, believe Donald Trump should be charged for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The ABC News Ipsos poll was conducted this past Friday and Saturday. After the first 3 hearings into the attack, there are still more to come. It found 58% of those surveyed believe the former president should be charged. That includes 91% of Democrats and 19% of Republicans. 60% of Americans believe the January 6th investigation has been fair, and they really have laid it out just point by point, Joe, no drama, letting the actual events speak for themselves.
Yeah, and we have heard David Ignatius for so long now, that for good reason. We've heard that the truth doesn't matter. We've heard about how conspiracy theories have choked rationality and reason from our political debate, from the public square. Well, this morning we have a poll that shows that actually 6 in 10 of our neighbors do seem to care. 6 in 10 of our countrymen and countrywomen do seem to care, that truth actually matters. Another 6 in 10 believe that this committee has been fair and impartial. Only 38%. The never say never Trumpers say it's not fair and impartial. And I must say, David, that is something for us to always remember the next time we see a poll that's showing about 40% of the country, a poll of 40% of the country, of like the Republican base, believe something crazy, because we're looking at about 38% there who still are clinging to conspiracy theories. 60% actually believe not only that Donald Trump acted wrongly, but that he should be charged with a crime.
Joe, I found the same sense of encouragement in those poll numbers. It's still a fact that our political system is broken. You look at the Democratic-Republican split in that poll, you got 91% of Democrats thinking Trump should be charged, and only 19% of Republicans. But what this does tell me is that a careful, systematic, non-showboating attempt to put the facts out before the American people, as the January 6th committee has done, appears to be having some effect. And that Trump's attempts to rebut that, as in his speech to the Faith and Freedom Coalition, are really flailing. I was struck, Joe, by the way in which this has gotten under Trump's skin. It's almost an obsession. He's obviously watching every detail. He's got a nasty word for everybody who's played a role. And I found his phrases by Trump standards just lacked the zingers that we're used to. So let's hope that the committee can continue forward, assembling this case piece by piece. They've had surprises along the way. I hope they continue to do that. But as you say, there's some evidence here that when the people are presented with carefully drawn facts, they draw sensible conclusions, and that's a relief, I got to say, in this country.
Yeah, Jonathan Lemire, you look at the number, only 19% of Republicans. Let's stop for a second, though, and think about this. In this world of small margins that we play by every election, whether it was 2016 or 2020, let's just stop for a second and go, oh, wow, only 19% of Republicans think he should be charged with a crime and go to jail. That's 1 in 5 Republicans. Now, I must say, I ran 4 times and won easily 4 times. But if 1 in 5 of my base thought I should have been charged with a crime and gone to jail, I mean, I would have gone and practiced law a lot earlier. Again, this is starting to resonate. This is starting to sink in, and I just we love to knock around Washington institutions. I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying all of us. We love to talk about how ineffective people in Congress are or committees are. This committee has gotten the truth out to the American people, and even at the beginning of the summer, they're listening, Jonathan. That's shocking to me.
Yeah, you make a good point about Republicans being sort of out of step in many ways with the mainstream. We've seen the poll we've gone over on this show about how they are out of step on abortion, how they are out of step on guns. And yes, at first glance, 19% feels like a small number, but 1 out of 5 is not insignificant, particularly in a moment here where the former president is eyeing a political comeback, where more and more Republicans are seemingly gaining the courage to stand up to him, considering their own 2024 run, whether or not he decides to launch his own campaign to seek the office again. And that's clear that these hearings are mattering. Now, we've seen some polling. We've talked that where some Republicans feel like they had the opposite effect. It's actually driven them more towards their base. It's turned them more towards Trump. But certainly 19, 20%. That's a real number. And it's a testament to the committee. We've had 3 hearings so far. We've got 2 more this week. And they have been really good, in part because they have been so unlike what we were all conditioned to expect from congressional hearings. They are pretty short, each one going about 2 hours or so. They are well scripted. They're well constructed. They move quickly. They had the incredible never before seen video, really powerful testimony, and a just the facts ma'am type of approach, mostly from fellow Republicans, those who even were on Donald Trump's team, who are now, of course, saying what he did was wrong and telling the American people that. Also, no great speeches, no speechifying from members. It's the work of staff, and it's getting it done and getting it done effectively. And aides telling reporters over the weekend they've got some really important things to share in the hearings still ahead.
It is Monday, the 20th of June of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays, because it's the day after Juneteenth. And yes, this is the day that we are nationally recognizing the holiday, even though the actual holiday was yesterday. And I suppose one should just make it a 3-day holiday, and maybe 4. So, happy holidays to you. It was also Father's Day yesterday, and I feel compelled to apologize for, I don't know, I was thinking maybe I was whining a little bit, but maybe that's a little too harsh on myself. I was feeling a bit low about, being a father and my adult son passing away a few years ago, and missing him terribly, but I still have my dad. And I was able to visit with him on FaceTime, so that was grand. My sister down in Southern California and her husband went to take my dad to dinner, and she set up the little FaceTime session, and we had a nice visit. So I sent him some chocolates and mixed nuts because he likes that. He likes those big old tins of popcorn too, flavored popcorns and such. But I'd already gotten him that recently, so nice mixed nuts and some nice chocolates, and enough there that he can share with his friends. He's in a really nice care home, independent living facility in Placentia, Fullerton, California. That's SoCal, for those of you who might not know the geography of SoCal. And very close to where we all grew up. He was, or still is, a professor emeritus at Cal State Fullerton. And though he hasn't taught in quite a while because he's in his mid-90s. But yeah, I have my dad, so we'll just say that mitigated the grief that I continue to have over the passing of my son, which is expected. Boy, life throws all sorts of things at you, and you're supposed to cope. Supposed to. Well, I want to thank folks for reaching out, and I didn't mean the one thing I hate is whining. I don't like it when other people do it, and I really don't like it when I recognize that I'm doing it. But I know, maybe I'm a whiner all the time. Maybe. Not as bad as some, as we know out there in the world, like a Donald Trump. Talk about whining. My God, no wonder people love him. He's like a whiner extraordinaire. Oh, I want to whine like him. He's so great. God. What has America become? They talk about the home of the brave. I'm still trying to figure out how it is the home of the brave, because for the most part, the reason we fill up intersections in foreign countries that we have military conflicts with, we fill those intersections that are full of innocent civilians. We'll fill that intersection up with lead because, well, pretty much our guys are afraid. Just fill the place up with lead. No, we'll figure it out later. And most of the time they don't figure it out. They just move on because, hey, the past is past and the future is the future, and now is now. All right. And then the same thing happens over and over and over. I had not a recent discussion with my maggot brother. He had purported that nobody respects his religion. Nobody respects his religious beliefs. And I'm like, first of all, anybody whining about that has some beliefs that would be suspect if you're whining about people not giving it its proper due. God. It's like missing the whole aspect of what it is to be contemplative and spiritual, doesn't it? Anyway, I asked him, well, you know, with all sincerity, well, what is it about your religion and that we should respect? Of course, maybe the way I put it set him off. But, you know, I'll just say this. He doesn't have a very strong background in religion and religious studies, all right? It's the trappings. It's the typical Southern California conspicuous consumption BS, okay? And he bought into it. And I was off at college, and so I guess I wasn't giving him the proper guidance, and he was a wild child and caused our parents a lot of problems. Isn't that weird? How the juvenile delinquents of old have grown up and become Trump supporters now. And they made a bunch of money, too, because, you know, in their development, at least with my brother, you know, he was able to make some money. And that's good. And when I say some money, I mean millionaire type money. Now, albeit it is in Southern California, and that is car culture, and he made millions and millions and millions in car culture, which means that you have to really learn how to lie to people, and then when they get a defective product, be able to turn your back on them and say, sucker. I'm serious. There's a reason my friends and family would not buy a car from my brother. It's like, do it once, you're not doing it again. But for some reason, we don't respect his religious beliefs sufficiently. And so that's reason enough to, partner up with a libertine out of New York and tell people how they're going to live now. Oh, wow. All right. I don't get it. So I asked him, well, tell me what you know about the Council of Trent. He has no idea what I'm talking about. So we're going to do the same thing over and over and over. 100 Years' War? Oh, my God. The Normans are going to really be pissed. I would. So how do you discuss the things that we've already figured out with people who took no time to learn that things have already happened, and this is how we figured it out, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel again, go through the same old animosities, go through the same old results? Ignorance is not bliss. All right? It is not. Ignorance is ignorance. And what happens with ignorance is that some people fall off the cliff. Some people merely stub their toe. But ignorance is ignorance. It's not bliss. Okay, enough of that ranting. How are you today, huh? I was going somewhere else with that, but I suppose my brother and I have a personality conflict. Okay, I'm the oldest, he's the youngest, and he has more qualities of Sonny than Michael. Okay, though you never know. You never know, because I'm certainly not Fredo. Something more like the Jack Nicholson character in 5 Easy Pieces, which I was accused of being. There were a lot of people. I guess they didn't realize that I probably wouldn't have been old enough for that character to have been developed from. But it's odd how some of the track of my life tracked with the character in 5 Easy Pieces. I wouldn't say that I had a Karen Black girlfriend, but I had a Karen Black type girlfriend. Unconsciously, apparently. But, I worked in the oil fields and became a supervisor. Not that the Jack Nicholson character did, because, he was, a pianist, wasn't he? At least his sister was. He came from a family from Puget Sound and, composers and whatnot. So, so I got accused of that character. Kind of come from a little learned background, and then you're going to go and work with the real people. And I did, because, hey, there's lots more of the workers than there are of the learned types, apparently. Anyway, I think that we've probably gone on far too long about familial conflicts, haven't we? Yes. It's a civil war. I'll just end this little sermon with this. We keep hearing the argument that we can't indict Trump in any criminal charges because it would cause his base to foment a civil war. And my argument is that we are already in a civil war fomented by Trump and his base. So it doesn't matter, okay? They're already killing people. They're already telling Adam Kinzinger, he's gotten death threats, and his wife has gotten death threats, and their newly born baby, too. And I just got to say, I don't think Antifa's calling up newborn baby families, saying we're going to kill you because we don't like your politics. The Republican Party is creating a paramilitary organization out of their base, and then giving them the mob cues to go out and take care of business. So, I'm just saying, it's a civil war already. We see it pretty much at the Thanksgiving Day dinner table, and sometimes in between those holidays. And it isn't fun. Not one whit. So, we take down the titular head, and then we have to deal with all their army, because that's what it is. I don't know how to deal with it, Being nice certainly doesn't work. And it's about time we stop being nice. A Nazi is a Nazi. It's time that we just said it. Oh, it might not fulfill the complete definition of Nazi, but they're Nazis. They're doing exactly what the Nazis did. Right down to the night of the long knives. Why else would Trump still speak glowingly about his desire to hang Mike Pence? That alone should get him charged. Let alone the talk with Raffensperger down in Georgia about finding him all those votes. Okay, enough of that. What do we have curated for you today in this fabulous salon that we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, this is heartening because nearly 6 in 10 Americans believe Trump should be charged with a crime for his role in January 6th. Now, a lot of people will say, poll schmoles. But still, 6 in 10. Only 1 in 5 Republicans believe it, but that's still quite a big number. 1 in 5. On the rest of the menu, 4 years after Iowa's top court ruled that abortion was protected by the state's constitution, a stacked court recently appointed by GOP Governor Kim Reynolds have said, "Precedent? We don't care about no stinking precedent." Modern redlining is pushing some longtime San Antonio Texans out of their homes. And when I say long time, I mean like 300-400 years. In that home. And as national Republicans block more comprehensive measures, Democrats across the country have started pushing for bans on gun sales near schools and child care centers. It's about time that we talked about safety now, isn't it? After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a government attorney for the Philippines was fatally shot in an Uber while visiting Philadelphia with his mom. No word on how injured the Uber driver and the mom was. Well, actually, there was some word. She got hit by fragments. And there's also some question on whether this might have been a directed hit. More to come on that. And the European Union's executive arm recommended making Ukraine a candidate for EU membership. That'll make Vlad very mad. And that's good. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across from the chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com to the left is the link to our Patreon page. And do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio because we could use the help. And I want to give a big shout out to those who have increased their monthly patronage to Netroots Radio. You know who you are. Thank you very much. It really does help us pay our bills. And for those of you out there who might consider doing so, if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way once a month, as I mentioned, it really does help us pay our bills. Because when we pay our bills, so far, we've been able to fly under the radar and continue this powerhouse of resistance against dark forces arrayed against not only the United States of America, but representative democracy around the world. And we do take this endeavor quite seriously, even though we might interject a bit of what we like to call gallows humor Anyway, thank you to those of you who have been so generous with your patronage over these 11 years that we have been resisting. 24/7, 365, by the way. And as I mentioned, we take it quite seriously because you are helping us fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended, oh so many years ago, indeed. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio, and we thank Tom for taking care of that. And he and Kelly take care of a lot more than those two tasks, shall we say. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and I'll tell you why. Because I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. And that's where the show notes and links are, and you can usually find the show notes and links somewhere in my Twitter feed at Justice Putnam. So there, sometimes. But the show notes and links are an integral part to what we do here at the salon, because that is truly where the real reportage is, and we're not hiding it. Please. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And also the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. All right. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Ash Mondays, by the way, is by staff at the Associated Press by way of the American Independent. The Iowa Supreme Court cleared the way for lawmakers to severely limit or ban abortion in the state, reversing a decision that the court just 4 years ago guaranteed the right to abortion under the Iowa Constitution. The court, now composed almost entirely of Republican appointees, concluded that a less conservative court wrongly decided abortion is among the fundamental privacy rights guaranteed by the Iowa Constitution and federal law. The ruling on Friday comes amid expectations that the U.S. Supreme Court will overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade decision that legalized abortion nationwide. If that happens, Iowa lawmakers could ban abortion without completing the lengthy process of amending the state constitution. They decide it's not part of the Constitution, but to really get it out of the Constitution, they have to have an amendment, and that takes time. The Iowa decision stemmed from a lawsuit filed by abortion providers who challenged a 2020 law that required a 24-hour waiting period before a woman can get an abortion. A judge who struck down the law cited the state high court's 2018 ruling. The judge also concluded that the law violated rules prohibiting passage of bills with more than one subject. The state Supreme Court returned the waiting period case to district court. In its 2018 ruling, decided by a 5-2 vote, the court said autonomy and dominion over one's body goes to the very heart of what it means to be free. And the Republican stacked court in Iowa says, hold on a minute. The opinion released on Friday and written by Justice Edward Mansfield said the court is not obligated to abide by precedent, especially in cases evaluating constitutional rights or in cases decided recently. But Mansfield rejected the argument by legal scholars and law professors that said shifting opinions on such important matters within a short period of time feeds into the idea that courts are politicized. We do not agree that every state Supreme Court decision is entitled to some minimum tryout period before it can be challenged, he said. Justice Brent Apple, the only Democratic appointee to the court, wrote a dissenting opinion saying the right to reproductive autonomy should not be eviscerated by narrow textualism. Visitors entering Rebecca Flores' San Antonio home pass a sepia-toned photo of her large Tejano family on the Texas farmland they worked before they moved into the city. It's a reminder of what they left behind and how far they've come in a land where their roots go back more than 300 years. The home's deep blue walls pay tribute to a family whose ancestors were among the first Canary Islanders to settle this colonial outpost and who, in 1959, pooled savings from their minimum wage incomes to buy the house. Flores, age 79, wants to keep the home and her family, but she and many of her mostly Mexican-American neighbors say they are being priced out of their homes due to skyrocketing property taxes in a hot housing market that has developers pressuring them to sell in the rapidly gentrifying city. Records show the value of her property has more than doubled in recent years, and were it not for exemptions, her taxes would be as high as a mortgage. She has been bombarded by offers from investors eager to cash in, and the names of property owners on her block have changed from Villaseñores and Herrera to those of corporations. San Antonio's impending housing crisis threatens to displace the longtime residents who helped give the city its distinctive culture and character. It's a crisis facing cities across America where housing is in short supply, affordable housing is even scarcer, and investors are sweeping into high-demand markets with big cash offers that are pricing many Americans out of the market altogether. Emmanuel Felton of the Washington Post brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Democrats across the country have started pushing for bans on gun sales near schools and daycare centers in an incremental effort to move gun restrictions forward as national Republicans block more comprehensive measures. North Carolina State Senator Natalie S. Murdoch, a Democrat, has drafted legislation to ban the sale of firearms within 1,400 feet, or about a quarter mile, of the property lines of any school or child care center. The proposal, which still be attached to an upcoming bill, does not cover existing stores or include college campuses, but it does include locations of organized clubs like the Boys and Girls Club of America. This month, in Asheville, North Carolina, school board member Peyton O'Connor introduced a resolution to ask the City Council and the Buncombe County Commission to enact zoning regulations that would prohibit establishing or operating a gun shop within 5 miles of any school or child care facility. Supporters say they have lawmakers ready to introduce similar policies both at the state and local levels in California, Colorado, South Carolina, New Hampshire, and New York. Brian Tatabi, a city council member in West Covina, California, who plans to introduce a zoning ordinance banning gun shops near schools, said he hoped state and local government could break the impasse in Washington on the issue of gun laws. Local government matters, and I know a lot of people are frustrated and a lot of people feel hopeless that they have no power because Washington seems so stagnant and stuck, Tatabi said. But I want people to know the City Hall is open, that public comment is available, and that those little ordinances, those little bitty laws, those are the things that affect your life And that's where we can put our energy. Let's get to work, folks. And let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, dinosaurs are back on fast food ads. 4 years after the disaster on Dino Island, Universal is back with the $185 million Jurassic World Dominion. Dinosaurs now roam the Earth and interact with humans, but for the formula here to keep working, there has to be some physical entity where well-intentioned but ultimately corrupt things transpire. In this one, that's the Biosyn Corporation, located in the Dolomite Mountains of Italy, which is under the tutelage of the aggressive, unethical, and recognizable Dr. Dodgson, who's still dedicated to the lofty ideals of genetic tinkering to benefit mankind, because that's worked out so well before. The suspicion here is that Biosyn has resurrected some prehistoric locusts, which don't eat Biosyn crops, but do eat everything else, shout out Monsanto, and which threaten the world's food supply. With evil afoot, especially Biosyn's interest in Owen Grady's secret clone daughter and pet velociraptor, the action is set. A lot of what follows is now termed fan service. While there's a lack of suspense in the usual sense here, there is some suspense, or at least interest, in how the various characters from the 30-year arc of the franchise will interact in the face of new challenges. I mean, what fan doesn't want to see what an aging Jeff Goldblum's character is up to, if Owen and Claire are getting on any better, or how Maisie is growing up? There's a wonderful chase scene through Malta, and the dinosaurs look better than ever, but leaps in technology don't make up for leaps in the plot, or the 10-second solution to that whole world food supply issue thing. Jurassic World Dominion is what it is, and because of so many people like me who've seen the other movies, it's turned that $185 million into over $500 at press time. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Karen Hopkin. Think of a top executive at a powerhouse company. You're no doubt imagining someone who's confident and clever, decisive and determined. And though it pains me to say it, you're probably picturing a man. The sad thing is, you wouldn't be too far off the mark.
Around only 7% of S&P 500 CEOs are women, despite women making up 50% of the population.
That's Asher Lawson, a graduate student at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. He says that one way to even the playing field might be to change the way we think about and talk about leadership. And he and his colleagues have found that organizations are more likely to describe women using words that are typically associated with achievement if they have female CEOs. Their findings appear in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences.
Gender inequality has been deemed the greatest human rights challenge of our time by the United Nations. In our research, we're interested in specifically some of the factors that perpetuate these gender inequities, as well as the downstream consequences of those gender stereotypes.
To get at the roots of these stereotypes, Lawson and his team took a closer look at corporate speak and the words businesses use when referring to women.
So we're really interested in language because it gives us this deep insight into how people are thinking about women in a way that doesn't rely on them reporting it themselves.
Now, coming straight out and asking companies how they feel about females can lead to some fanciful forecasting.
So if you ask organizations whether they believe in gender equity or whether they're interested in fairness, because of social desirability concerns, they'll nearly always say yes.
To find out if businesses talk the talk and walk the walk, The researchers parsed the shareholder reports and investor documents of S&P 500 companies. Using natural language processing techniques, they analyzed some 43,000 files, containing more than 1.2 billion words. And they looked for associations between words that signify women, like she and her, and words typically associated with leadership, like assertive or ambitious or effective.
One way to think of it is if we had an autocomplete system, like you use on your phone, and you said, she is, it would be like, how likely is it that the next word is powerful?
Once they assessed the association,
we then asked, how do these associations change when you hire women as leaders? And we saw the same pattern across all of this data, that hiring women as senior leaders led to an increased association with those leadership congruent traits.
And it wasn't that the companies were extolling the virtues of their own specific staff.
So it's not just discussion of those new CEOs and board members, but actually generalizes to discussion of women more broadly. So we were heartened to see this result.
At the same time, they wondered whether there might be any backlash. In other words, when a woman's seen as more competent, is she then considered to be less compassionate or considerate?
Happily, we saw that there was no decreased association with being caring and these kinds of likable traits.
Even better, the data suggests that the organizations that saw the biggest boost in female-linked leadership language are more likely to hire even more women.
So this highlights the opportunity for a virtuous cycle where the effect can snowball. Appointing women leads women to be more closely associated with these traits that are seen as necessary to be leaders, and this can actually precipitate hiring more women in the future. So it's a very exciting process to witness.
And something the head honcho will surely write about in her next annual report. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. From a very young age, we're encouraged to eat fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, many Americans are not getting the message. Dr. Seung-Hee Lee Kwan is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. She's joining us today to discuss the importance of eating enough fruits and vegetables. Welcome to the show, Seung-Hee.
Thank you for having me.
Seung-Hee, what is the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
The federal guidelines recommend that adults consume at least 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fruit and 2 to 3 cups of vegetables each day. This is for adults who get less than 30 minutes of physical activity a day. Adults who are more physically active need more calories and thus should be eating more fruits and vegetables. 1 cup is about 12 strawberries or 1 large tomato.
How many people consume the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
We found that very few adults are getting enough fruits and vegetables. Just 12% are eating the recommended amount of fruits, and less than 1 in 10 eat enough vegetables. And consumption is lower among men, young adults, and adults living in poverty.
Why is eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables so important?
Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help with 3 things. 1, it can reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and deaths, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and even obesity. It can also add important nutrients that are commonly missing in Americans' diet. And it can help with weight management if adults consume fruits and vegetables instead of other calorie-dense foods.
How can we meet the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables?
Try to fill half of your plate with fruits or vegetables at each meal or every eating occasion. Making fruits and vegetables the focal point of your meal will help you meet your recommendations. For example, recent studies have shown that adults get most of their fruit during breakfast and snacks. So you can try adding berries to your morning oatmeal or grab a piece of fresh fruit as an afternoon snack. For vegetables, most adults eat them at dinner, so try adding more into your lunch by adding a side salad or packing a snack of baby carrots or grape tomatoes.
Are canned or frozen products just as good as fresh?
All forms of fruits and vegetables count towards meeting the recommendations. For the most health benefits, make sure that the fruits and vegetables you consume have limited amount of salt, butter, sugar, or creamy sauces. When selecting canned fruits, choose the ones with lowest sugars. And for canned or frozen vegetables, choose those lower in sodium.
Where can listeners get more information about eating a healthy diet?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/nutrition or choosemyplate.gov.
Thanks, Seung-hee. I've been talking today with Seung-hee Lee Kwon about the importance of eating a healthy diet. Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and death and add important nutrients to your diet. Make sure you're eating enough. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. We are joined today by a very special guest, actress and educator, Dr. Vicki Ross Norris. Dr. Ross Norris, what is Juneteenth and why is it important?
Juneteenth is a recognition and has become a formal national holiday, thanks to President Biden, to recognize the emancipation of the slaves. One of the things that many people don't realize is that when President Lincoln spoke and emancipated the slaves, in Texas, the slave owners kept their slaves in bondage for another 2 years. So therefore, in Texas, not until 1865 were the slaves freed. Major General Granger and 2,000 troops went to Galveston, Texas, and proclaimed the emancipation of the slaves. And it was June the 19th, and that's how the word Juneteenth came about. It is important because it is American history. And in a time when most people want to erase certain parts of history, we must hold on to the good and the bad, the ugly and the pretty, so that we can learn to become a better nation and to unite our nation. What does it mean to African Americans? For 157 years, African Americans have celebrated this holiday. We have family reunions, which my family is having this weekend. We have picnics, we have activities. One of the largest June 19th events is held in Westchester, New York, in White Plains. I remember when I first moved to upstate New York, I went to the Juneteenth parade, and it was just a few people walking down the street. Now, this event draws people from all over the United States. There are lectures, picnics, parties to celebrate the freedom of African Americans. That's the importance of Juneteenth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ross Norris. This episode is made possible by the support of T-Mobile. 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1893. That was the day that Eugene V. Debs founded the American Railway Union. The goal of the union was to organize railroad workers from different job classifications. Previous railroad unions had been based on job type. Coordinating solidarity between the multiple unions proved difficult. The lack of solidarity hurt railroad organizing. The American Railway Union was open to all white union railway workers up to the job of foreman. This new approach to organizing paid off quickly. In the spring of 1894, the union won a strike against the Great Northern Railroad. The Great Northern Railroad had arbitrarily reduced the workers' wages. When the railroad agreed to go to arbitration to settle the strike, it was seen as a great union victory. Railroad owners were notorious for their anti-union stances. The American Railway Union had not only stood up to the railroad, they had won. In less than a year, more than 450 locals had joined the American Railway Union. Nearly 150,000 workers became members. This made Deb's organization one of the largest unions in the country. But as quickly as it rose, it also rapidly declined. The mid-1890s marked one of the greatest economic downturns in U.S. history prior to the Great Depression. In 1884, the Union organized a boycott against George Pullman. Pullman was the founder of the Pullman Palace Car Company. He had slashed his workers' wages while not reducing rents in his company town. A federal judge issued an injunction barring Debs and other leaders from coordinating the boycott. President Grover Cleveland ordered federal troops to get the trains running again. During the 6 months Debs was imprisoned for supporting his members, the American Railway Union was crushed.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 54 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of about 80 to 82, which is nice. Had a bit of rain on Friday into Saturday, and then about the middle of Saturday started clearing up and had a relatively nice day yesterday indeed. And that was in the low to mid 70s yesterday, and today we are increasing in temperature, which we will be doing throughout the week. So I think and I suspect that we will be having the unbearable heat coming back, as we are a furnace here during the summer, at least have been for a few years. So we'll have sunny conditions throughout the day, and, it's sunny conditions at the moment. Will be partly cloudy throughout the day. Winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then sunny skies tomorrow with highs about 88 to 90. As I said, we're warming up. And it looks like our overnight lows are going to be in the 50s, which is okay. Just don't like it getting too much more than that. When it's in the 70s overnight, it's no fun. And the winds will be out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour tomorrow. Surprisingly, we did have an update before showtime on Friday for the coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon. So I'll just remind you what that update was on Friday, because I expect maybe we'll get another update on Wednesday. If not, we'll get it on Friday. But we now stand at 456,014 confirmed cases of coronavirus infection, and our deceased stand at 548. Jackson County is also one of the 3 counties where it is recommended to wear masks indoors and out. And nobody does, but I still am, and I'm really limiting when I go around these people, because you never know what they got. Grass pollen is rated very high right outside the window here in Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is good, and it's gone down from a few days ago to 20 parts per million. And that daytime UV index remains very high at level 9, so take care, slather on the SPF. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.25 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is a sticky 90%. It's like Hawaii, except without the beaches. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 72 degrees and sunny. Paris is 73 degrees and partly cloudy. Rome is 88 and fair. Kyiv is 90 degrees and fair. Kabul is 65 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 83 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 75 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 54 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York, New York is 72 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the Associated Press bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. A government attorney for the Philippines was fatally shot in an Uber while visiting Philadelphia, officials said yesterday, Sunday. John Albert Lalo was heading to Philadelphia International with his mother to board a flight, and was stopped in the Uber at a red light near the University of Pennsylvania around 4:10 a.m. on Saturday morning. Several rounds were fired into the Uber from a black car behind it. The black car then pulled up alongside the Uber and fired several more rounds into it, police said in a news release. Lalo was shot in the back of the head and taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead yesterday, Sunday. No one was arrested, and no weapon has been found. The Consulate General of the Philippines said the victim was an attorney for its government. It was not clear whether the Uber driver or Lalo's mother were injured, but the mother posted to Facebook on Sunday indicating she had been hit by shrapnel and saying she had been on vacation with her son, whom she referred to as Jal, and said was 35 years old.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Samuel Petraquin of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The European Union's executive arm recommended making Ukraine a candidate for EU membership, a morale booster, and a first step on what is expected to be a long road for the war-torn country to join the 27-nation bloc. If Ukrainians were under any illusion that the European Commission's positive assessment would mean fast-track EU membership, their hopes of quickly joining the club were dashed. Starting accession negotiations is further down the line, the EU Commissioner for the bloc's enlargement said. Once conditions are met, then we will have to come back and reflect on it, but that is not for today. The European Commission delivered its proposal to award Ukraine candidate status after an analysis of answers to a detailed questionnaire. The Ukrainian government applied for EU membership days after Russia invaded the country on February 24th. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum.